So here we go with resume 5. You'll see that it's not due for some time, April 10th, which make you think, well, I'll just relax. But of course, in the meantime, you're going to get feedback from me, and you have to make all the changes and corrections and additions, or face a serious penalty if you don't. Make sure you understand them, ask me questions, and so on to make sure you understand where you're going with your changes and corrections and additions. So what this really comes down to is, and you can use some of these names if you wish that I'm suggesting, or just use reasonable ones that follow our rules. I'm not that picky about it. I do think that your cover letter should already be named index. I think that name is important. What you're going to use is your resume 4 structure. I suggest the way I would do it is I just duplicate the entire project folder, copy it and paste it over again, and then rename it resume 5. And your root folder, I don't think the word root is necessary in there. If you just call the root folder resume 5 in your last name or first name, a name, that would be fine. So that's the key folder. And inside there right now, if you duplicate your resume 4 and you have it, the stuff you were supposed to, you would have 4 files in there. Your resume 4, main big file, your index, your style sheet, and the silhouette image. Maybe some of you already had moved on to put a photo of yourself there. That would be fine. Doesn't have to be the silhouette image, but there is an image there. Remember, since there's an image on the page, it has to be there in the folder. Okay, so what are you going to do? Well, yes, you should rename the resume file, I guess, but it's not that important because you're going to be splitting it up into multiple files anyway. You're going to at least split your resume file into 2 files, and probably more likely 3, and some of you may split it up into 4 files. So at the end, you're going to have at least 5 files in your folder, or maybe 6 more likely, or maybe even 7. This is where your resume is going to start to diverge from the resumes being created by other people in the class, because where you split yours is going to be different from them because your content is different too. And as I mentioned here, are your files up to date? Now or later, as we go along, you do have to make the changes and additions, okay? So now, considering that maybe you have made those changes and additions, it's time to add key things. Are going to be links, colors, and convert your 2-page site into 3 pages or more, as I said. So I think the first thing to do is to split the resume. And how are you going to split it? Well, myself, what I would do is I would look it over and plan what the split is going to be, what things are going to go on which page. And then if I was going to have 2 or 3 pages as the end product, I would just copy the entire resume and paste it back in 1 or 2 more times. So I had 2 or 3 copies. And then I would go into each of those resume copies and delete out the stuff I didn't want. Alternatively, you can do it the other way. You can take your 1 copy and then just copy stuff from inside of it and go paste it into a new file and then paste into another new file. Either way, either take the big whole thing, make multiple copies, and remove what you don't want. I like that because you have the full structure there already. Or the other way, take your copy and go in and copy stuff out and paste it into fresh files. But how you do it, it's not that big a deal. It's not that complicated. Multiple choices. What you're going to do, though, that's the key thing. Very typically, one split is an education employment split. So you take all the education-related stuff on one page and the employment-related stuff on another page. Exactly what's going to go on what? Some of them don't fit that well, perhaps. That's going to be a question. Some people take everything that they have, especially if you don't have a lot of jobs, and put it on an experience page, which might include education, and then make an about page, which has things like hobbies and so on, and skills maybe. They could go either way. So again, it's really up to you. I think a 3-way split makes most sense for most people. You could probably have an education page, an employment page, and an about me page. And the about me page would probably have hobbies and volunteerism and maybe skills, or those might go with experience. Whichever way you split your page, do remember, and this is really critical, and this is something that people forget, each page needs to be fully independent. Each page has to have all of its basic HTML structure. Each page has to have its own title. Each page has to have its own H1. It still is going to have H2s and H3s. You're not going to skip heading levels. So, for instance, what do I mean? So your index page has a title, which should be your name, and then it could say welcome, or it could say, more likely, something about what you're doing, okay? But your H1 on that page is just going to be your name. But your resume page at this, let's say, at this point, it's probably got something like a name like a title like your name, and then a divider of some kind, and then perhaps resume and college experience, and then the H1 would be your name and then perhaps resume. More likely though, you're going to have employment, experience, and so on. So each of those pages is going to have a title, which is your name, and then remember, titles don't have link limits. So you should have listed on there everything that's on the page. In the title, it should be your name, a separator, and then all the topics on the page. Let's say you have a page which is education. Good. Then your H1 would be your name and then the word education. Okay. And then you still have to H2, which has to work with the H1 but can't duplicate it. The H2 is still like probably college experience or something like that. Then you list the colleges. And then maybe you have college activities as another H2 and so on. But your title now would have every one of those topics. So your title is going to be your name, divider, and then you're going to list every topic that's on that page. Essentially every H2 that's on that page, really. So if you have college experience and college publications and college activities and so on, each one of those is going to be the title. But we want to keep the heading short. So your H1 is going to try to be some overall word like education or experience or something like that. It depends on what the page is. So remember, unique, specific titles and H1s for each page. And the H1 has to work with the H2, and that can take some creativity to try to figure out how they work together and don't duplicate each other. And remember, every page has to have a link to the CSS file. Okay, before we go on, let's take a look at that and some real examples of how that split works. So I'm going to go into, remember, this sample resumes from past semesters, and you should consider spending a little time with this also. This is from the Moodle site, of course. And I go here. I'm going to get some sample resumes. Let's take a look at some of them and see what the people did. So let's take a look at Lee Ching's. Of course, this is the home page, the index page, what was the cover letter. Remember, at this point, you're not adding photos, but she does have a title, and this is the title. You can see I'm hovering over it now. Her name, and then something about what this page is doing. But that's different from her H1 here, which is just her name. Okay, she has an education page. Look, she has education, experience, and about me. So she did a three-way split. What'd she put in her education page? Well, her H1 is just the word education. Good. But up here, she probably should have had more things in her title. It should have been objective and education. That's the two things that were on this page. So she probably should have objective there too. That's one question is, you have an objective or a summary or something else like that. Are you going to put it on every page, or are you going to put it just on the first or main page? Probably just the first one. It's really up to you. Occasionally people do put it on every page, but it feels kind of redundant. So which page is objective going to go on? In this case, by putting it here, she kind of broke it up. She could use the word education here and the word education here. She didn't just go right from education to education. That was one advantage. So she has here, as you would imagine, she has her education. She has 2 colleges listed too. Okay, good. That's her education page. What's her experience page? Experience in her page is employment. That's H1, that's H2. Writing, so she's got her jobs. Right? But she also put volunteerism and community service here. Did it need to go here? No. You might have, maybe you put skills here and move that over to an about page. It's up to you. About page, again, her about page, her title was about me, but really it should be more. It should be about me and skills and awards, honors, and so on. Everything on the page should be listed in the title. So she didn't quite get her titles right. But otherwise, she's got an H1 that makes sense, about me, and which is kind of a general catch-all title. She put her skills there, awards, honors, interests, hobbies. Okay, and then gallery. Now you don't have to do a gallery yet. That's going to come later. But of course, gallery is going to be stuff that you did, and she has some things. We want to represent them visually as much as possible. but it's time to start gathering that stuff together. You're not doing that yet. Okay, let's take a look at somebody else. How about Asia, who's just graduating this semester? Okay, let's open this up. Asia did a education and employment and volunteerism and about me. She did a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-page split and later added samples also. So she just concentrated her pages on single topics pretty much. Again, her title here says her name and welcome, which I think is fine for an index page. Education, her title says education, and she put awards and achievements and college activities. Actually, she listed all sorts of stuff here. This is where she put her objective, and under education she has a college, yes, and it continues, and she put awards, achievements here, and college activities and publications. Okay, good. And then employment, she has jobs. It's pretty much just jobs, but she had a number of them. Volunteerism, she had a volunteerism category, but she had quite a few things in there. You're also, when you're splitting things up, you're thinking, do I have a photo for those things? Do I have a photo for that page? You want to have at least one image for each page, and ideally more. And one problem I see is many people run a lot of images a little small. I think some of these images here on most of these pages could be bigger. This is her what? Skills page, about me's page. It should say, it says technology skills, interest. Actually, probably she has many things listed in her title. This is the about me page, I believe. Yeah. So she put skills and interests and hobbies in there, and then she has samples also. For her, it's a bunch of links to some stories that were published. Okay. And let's just look at one more. Let's look at Rachel Burke. Rachel or Devin? Rachel, I guess. I want to do like Rachel's. She has a different kind of menu. She has a home, education, employment, achievements, and skills. So she has a 4-page split, but a different kind of 4-page split. She has an interesting little menu there. You can look at her code if you wish. Education, she doesn't have too much in there. Should have a lot more in here. But she's arranged her things a little differently. Her pages are somewhat small. Experience, which would be job, right? And she has her jobs here, and other experience, which kind of like she put like internship kind of stuff, or student publications there. Employment, I already did that, sorry. Achievements, she put awards and publications here. And then skills, she has a separate category for skills. And she put interests and hobbies there. Okay, so if you look through those, you'll see lots of different ways, and continue to look through more of them if you wish. I really have to freshen these up and put some brand new ones on here, but maybe I'll get some from our class. I'll stick them on here when you guys are done. Okay, so that's all the big split, and that's perhaps the biggest visual change, or, well, a big change in this level of the resume. However, we have more things to do. And where is there it is, okay, good. And then one of the big ones is adding links to your page. Okay, so I want you to link to everything that is reasonably makes sense to every institution, organization, business, school, so on. But remember, you only link once to that thing. In other words, if on a page you mention SUNY Plattsburgh 3 times, you only link to it once. But then if on the next page you'll mention SUNY Plattsburgh again, you link again to it once. These, of course, are Ahref links. We're talking about links, absolute links to real things that are out there on the internet. We're not talking at this point about navigation links. We're not doing navigation yet. So where do you link? These will be, as I said, absolute external links. And please read all the, I don't read all the instructions in these videos, so please read all the instructions. Target blank, I don't think so. I think if you're going to do it to all of them, I guess. But I personally prefer leaving that up to the user to decide if they want things to open up in a new window. Here's something really important. Links are best used in paragraph or list item text. Don't link from headings or DDs, actually. They'd be okay in DDs. In other words, reading copy. Do not link from headings. To make this work, you may have to do some rewriting. So let me give you an example. Let's take a look at one of these here. Let's look at Li Qing's, and we'll go back to her education page. Okay, so she mentions SUNY Plattsburgh, and she links to it here. Good. Originally, in her resume 4, maybe she didn't have the word SUNY Plattsburgh there. Maybe she just wrote a paragraph that said, here I have learned about behaviors and so on and so forth, because she didn't feel like she needed to. Why? Because she had SUNY Plattsburgh right here in a H3. But now she had to do a little rewriting to get the word SUNY Plattsburgh into the paragraph to make a nice place for a link. Why doesn't she want to put the link to this university, for instance, in the heading? It's because headings have another job to do. Headings frequently carry color of their own, right? And it gets confusing if you try to put links with a certain color in headings that already have a certain color too. So we really want the links to do their job and to flow in the reading kind of copy. Okay, so do not put them in headings. Put them in paragraphs. And let's see what Asia did, for instance. Let's go back to her employment page, for instance. Babysitting, she didn't have one for that, but her dance school she did, right? And there it is, and she puts it in the paragraph. And the same thing for, actually she didn't have a link for that one, probably for, well, education she certainly does. She has SUNY Plattsburgh as a link. But by the way, see, that's a visited link. And also, she has a little problem here. These colors are very similar. They may not be identical, but they're very similar. Honestly, we want to make sure that the colors we use in our links are not the same as, or so close to as to be almost the same thing as colors used in headings, or in DTs in this case either. So again, she links in her paragraphs. You can link into DDs. You could link in maybe in the list items. That can be a little confusing, but I think paragraphs, DDs are the best, maybe LIs, but not headings. Okay, so there's that. And I want you to add contact information on each page. At the bottom of every page, that includes the index, add a paragraph that reads something like contact me at, and put email and phone. If you don't, you should use your own email and phone numbers to create the links, but you don't have to. You could put in some like a generic email or phone number if you don't want your email and phone number to be listed for me to see or something. Though frankly, I guess I have access to that information. Also, we may move this information. You might put it in a box and float it later or something, but for now, leave them at the bottom. It can go down there just above the HR and the copyright that you have at the bottom of every page, and there should be a copyright at the bottom of every page now too. Every page, including the index, has a copyright at the bottom. So we have contact me, and you have copyright stuff, and Asia does also, and the copyright stuff at the bottom of every page. Some people, she has hers over here down like that. That's different. Some people, do I have an example of somebody who has, does Samantha have, she puts, say some people will have, and you can even start if you know how to do this, or we'll have a lesson later. What about social media? Put social media links. Or what about putting them as icons also down there for social media links? And you can actually use that for your email and phone too. You can have icons down there, have little images that are linked. That's something to think about. Don't have to do it yet, but you may do it later. It'll be kind of like an extra credit element down here. And those are actually free all over the web, social media and other. You have phone and email links down there, or you could do social media links as images and then still do phone and email as text, which I think probably makes the most sense, really. Okay. And what else? So contact information and copyright on every page. At least do email and phone at this stage. Add colors. You've created and tried out 2 color schemes. It's time for you to apply a color scheme to your growing site. Okay, so this is going to be in the CSS, of course. I think it might be related to one of the schemes you did in color exercise 2-3. However, I'm going to suggest that you maybe tone things down a little bit. Don't overdo the color. Be subtle. Make sure things are still easy to read. And a key thing, which you get knocked down for if you don't pay attention to it, is both the contrast between the background and the text, and making sure that links work in the scheme. You have full styling of links also, and that the links are different from each other and different from regular copy. Treatment of links, some kind of treatment of links on all the link stages, and they must all be there. Also, margins, there's some margin code you could use. If you didn't already put margins in there, put margins for the body. And samples page, you don't have to do it yet, but what are you going to put there? It's time to start thinking about it, brainstorm about it, gather stuff together. And the photo, again, I warned you before, get photos of yourself. And what follows resume 5 is going to be resume final, the final project, which will include photos and navigation and layout. So we're getting pretty close there. So it's time to buckle down and pull all this together. Again, I'm sure you may have questions and so on. You can email me, you can use the forum, we can call, we could Zoom together, one way or the other. But remember, this is stuff you're working on over the next week or so, a little longer. So independent work and pull it all together on your own.